The evening crowd at Bellamy's was just like any other Thursday night. The restaurant, tucked between towering office buildings in downtown Manhattan, glowed with warm lighting that reflected off crystal glasses and polished silverware. For those who could afford the menu prices, Bellamy's offered an escape from the city's noise into a world of hushed conversations and discreet luxury. In the kitchen, amid the controlled chaos of sizzling pans and shouted orders, stood Lily. 28 years old, with her dark hair tied back in a practical bun, she adjusted her black uniform vest and balanced 3 plates along her arm with practiced ease. 6 years at Bellamy's had taught her exactly how to move, how to anticipate, and most importantly, how to become almost invisible to the customer she served. "Table 12 is getting impatient," the head server muttered as he passed. "The husband keeps checking his watch." Lily nodded, her face revealing nothing of the exhaustion that had settled into her bones after a double shift. "On it," she replied, grabbing a water pitcher before pushing through the swinging kitchen doors. The dining room hummed with the pleasant murmur of wealth. Business deals being closed, vacations being planned, inheritances being discussed in careful tones. Lily moved between the tables like water finding its path, refilling glasses and clearing, plates with movement so smooth that most guests never paused their conversations to acknowledge her. Table 12 sat a middle-aged couple, the woman draped in a cashmere wrap that probably cost more than Lily's monthly rent, the man wearing a watch that could have paid off her student loans. As Lily approached with their entrees, she caught snippets of their conversation. "Absolutely dreadful performance. The symphony board needs to consider replacing him before next season. The technique was there, but no heart. No soul. It's like he's never truly lived." The woman looked up as Lily set down her plate. "Thank you, dear," she said with the quick, automatic politeness of someone trained to be cordial to service staff without actually seeing them. "My pleasure," Lily responded with her work smile, the one that reached her lips but never quite made it to her eyes. "Can I get you anything else right now?" As the couple resumed their conversation about the city's latest concert season, Lily's gaze drifted briefly to the baby grand piano sitting in the corner of the restaurant. Most evenings, an older gentleman named Mr. Reynolds played smooth jazz and tasteful classical pieces, creating the perfect background atmosphere that the restaurant's wealthy patrons expected. Tonight the piano sat silent, its polished black surface gleaming under the soft lights. 6 more hours until closing. 6 more hours of carrying plates and smiling at people who looked through her. Lily pushed away the familiar ache of longing that always surfaced when she looked at that piano. Back in the kitchen, she leaned against the wall for a moment, flexing her fingers to ease the stiffness. The movement was automatic, a habit from another life, stretching her hands as if preparing them to span octaves across ivory keys. "You okay?" asked Danny, another server who had started around the same time as Lily. "You've got that look again." "What look?" Lily straightened up, reaching for the next order. "That faraway one. Like you're not really here." Danny tilted her head. "Let me guess. Table 14 talking about their kid getting into Juilliard again?" Lily laughed softly. "Table 12 discussing last night's symphony performance. Apparently the pianist lacked soul." "Of course he did," Danny rolled her eyes. "Because they're such experts." "The thing is," Lily said, lowering her voice, "they weren't wrong. I heard that same concert on the radio while getting ready for work yesterday. His Chopin was technically perfect, but what?" Danny asked, genuinely curious now. It was like he was reading notes off a page instead of telling a story. Lily shrugged, embarrassed by her own passion. "Not that it matters what I think." Danny studied her friend with newfound interest. "You know, in all these years, you've never really told me why you stopped playing. You were at the conservatory, right? On scholarship?" The kitchen doors swung open as another server rushed in, breaking the moment. "Orders up," the chef called out, and just like that, the conversation was over and they were back to the rhythm of the night. As Lily moved through the dining room, her mind drifted to memories she usually kept locked away. The small apartment where she grew up, dominated by the upright piano her mother had bought secondhand. The hours of practice after school, her fingers flying over the keys while other kids played outside. The teachers who had called her gifted, promising. The competitions she'd won, and then her mother's illness. The medical bills. The impossible choice between pursuing her education and keeping a roof over their heads. Now 6 years later, her mother was gone. The bills were paid. but the music had stayed buried. Sometimes Lily would pass a music store and stand outside, looking at sheet music in the window. Sometimes she would sit at the public piano in the train station and let her fingers hover above the keys, never quite finding the courage to press down and release the notes trapped inside her. "Excuse me?" A voice pulled her from her thoughts. The woman at table 19 was holding up an empty wine glass. "Could we get another bottle of the Bordeaux?" "Right away, ma'am." Lily nodded, slipping back into her professional persona. Near the bar, Mr. Bellamy himself, the restaurant's owner, was entertaining a group of investors. A tall man with silver hair and the confident posture of someone who had never worried about making rent. He barely acknowledged Lily as she passed the wine order to the sommelier. "The thing that sets Bellamy's apart," she overheard him saying, "is our attention to atmosphere. Every detail matters, the lighting, the table settings, the music." As if on cue, the restaurant's front door opened, and Mr. Reynolds appeared, his bow tie slightly crooked, and his face flushed. He hurried over to Mr. Bellamy, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. Lily couldn't hear what they were saying, but she could read the tension in Mr. Bellamy's shoulders as he listened. His forced smile remained fixed for his guests, but his eyes darted around the restaurant with growing concern. The evening continued its steady pace. Lily served the chocolate soufflé to table 12, recommended the cheese plate to table 7, and kept water glasses filled with mechanical efficiency. All the while, she noticed Mr. Bellamy making phone calls from the corner, his expression growing increasingly grim. During a rare, quiet moment, Danny sidled up next to her at the service station. "Drama alert," she whispered. "Mr. Reynolds has laryngitis or something." "Can't play tonight, so?" Lily asked, arranging coffee cups on a tray. "It's not like he sings while he plays. Apparently his hands are the problem. Some sort of tendinitis flare-up. And tonight's the big dinner for those tech investors Mr. Bellamy has been courting for months." Danny raised her eyebrows meaningfully. "He's freaking out because the perfect atmosphere he promised includes live music. And every pianist he knows is booked for that charity gala at the Waldorf." Lily felt a strange flutter in her chest but pushed it away. "They'll figure something out. They can use the sound system. Recorded music? At Bellamy's?" Danny mock-gasped. Sacrilege. The night wore on. More tables filled, more wine was poured, more dishes were served and cleared. But unlike most evenings, there was a subtle undercurrent of tension among the staff. Mr. Bellamy kept checking his watch and glancing at the empty piano, while the reservation book showed that the private dining room would soon be filled with the tech investors, people who could potentially fund the restaurant's expansion to other cities. At 8:30, the investors began to arrive. Men and women in expensive suits, with the casual confidence of people who controlled vast fortunes. Mr. Bellamy greeted them with handshakes and smiles that didn't quite hide his anxiety. Lily was assigned to serve the private dining room along with 2 other staff members. As she arranged the place settings one final time, she could feel the weight of the silence where music should have been. The room felt incomplete, like a painting missing its frame. She looked up to find Mr. Bellamy watching her from the doorway, his expression unreadable. Then to her surprise, he walked over. "Lily, isn't it?" he asked, though she had worked at his restaurant for 6 years. "Yes, sir." He hesitated, seeming uncharacteristically uncertain. "Danny mentioned something to me just now. She said you used to study piano." At the conservatory, Lily felt her cheeks warm. She was going to kill Danny later. "That was a long time ago, sir. But you were good?" His question was direct, desperate. She thought about how to answer. Good enough to earn a full scholarship. Good enough that her professors had predicted concert halls in her future. Good enough that giving it up had felt like cutting off a limb. "I was decent," she said finally. Mr. Bellamy looked at her with new interest, his gaze moving from her face to her hands. These investors are expecting the full Bellamy's experience. The piano is a key part of that experience. Lily felt her heart begin to race as she realized where this conversation was heading. "Mr. Bellamy, I haven't played seriously in years, but you could play something?" "Anything?" He was practically pleading now, his carefully cultivated image of control slipping. "Just background music. Classical, jazz, whatever, you know. I'd consider it a personal favor." The thought terrified her. 6 years of silence, 6 years of avoiding pianos, of changing radio stations when certain pieces came on. of telling herself that chapter of her life was closed. But beneath the terror was something else. A spark of longing so powerful it made her hands tremble. In the main dining room, she could see the investors taking their seats. Through the doorway, her eyes found the baby grand piano, waiting in its corner like an old friend she had abandoned. "I don't have anything to wear," she said weakly. Gesturing at her server's uniform, Mr. Bellamy's face lit up, sensing victory. "We can figure that out." "So you'll do it?" Lily looked down at her hands. Hands that had carried plates and glasses for years. Hands that had once brought audiences to their feet. Hands that still stretched each night as if preparing to play, even when there was no music. "I'll try," she whispered. Not entirely sure if she was making a terrible mistake or finally waking up from a long sleep. The staff room at Bellamy's was small and plain, a stark contrast to the elegant dining areas. The walls were lined with metal lockers and a single mirror hung next to the time clock. Lily stood in front of this mirror now, barely recognizing herself. Danny had worked a small miracle in 15 minutes. After Mr. Bellamy's desperate request, she had rushed Lily back here and pulled a sleek black dress from her gym bag, brought for a date she had planned after her shift. "It's perfect," Danny insisted, smoothing the fabric over Lily's shoulders. "A bit loose in the chest, but who's going to notice when you're sitting at the piano?" The dress was simple but elegant, knee-length with cap sleeves and a modest neckline. Nothing like the server's uniform Lily had worn for years. She turned slightly, watching the fabric catch the light. "I can't believe I agreed to this," Lily whispered, her heart hammering so hard she felt dizzy. "What if I mess up? What if I can't remember anything to play? Then they'll all go home thinking the regular guy was sick and the restaurant tried its best." Danny shrugged, reaching up to release Lily's hair from its tight bun. Dark waves fell around her shoulders and Danny nodded with satisfaction. "But that's not going to happen, because somewhere inside you there's still a pianist. You talk about music like it's a language you're fluent in." Lily closed her eyes as Danny brushed through her hair. "It's been 6 years, so? It's like riding a bike, right?" Danny said with forced cheerfulness. Lily almost laughed. "No, it is absolutely not like riding a bike." Her fingers flexed at her sides, muscle memory awakening. "It's more like trying to read a language you once knew fluently, but haven't practiced in years. The knowledge is there, but it's rusty, buried." There was a sharp knock at the door and Mr. Bellamy's voice called through. 10 minutes. "Coming," Danny answered, then turned back to Lily. "You look beautiful. And hey," she grabbed Lily's trembling hands, "even if you just played chopsticks for 3 hours, you're getting paid extra for this, right?" That was true. Mr. Bellamy had promised her a bonus equal to 2 weeks' pay, regardless of how the performance went. For someone whose rent was due next week, that was no small consideration. "This isn't how I imagined playing again," Lily admitted quietly. "How did you imagine it?" The question caught her off guard. The truth was, after her mother died, she hadn't allowed herself to imagine playing again at all. It hurt too much. But before that, in the days when she still had dreams, "Carnegie Hall," she said with a small smile, embarrassed by the admission. "Or at least a real concert. Not background music while people eat overpriced steaks and talk about their stock portfolios." Danny squeezed her shoulder. "Every comeback has to start somewhere." Another knock, more insistent this time. "You should go," Lily said. "You still have tables." "Good luck," Danny replied, then paused at the door. "Remember, these people don't know what you're capable of. You don't owe them your best, just your presence, but—" She hesitated. "Maybe you owe yourself a chance to play again. Even if it's not Carnegie Hall." Then she was gone. And Lily was alone with her reflection and the weight of what she had agreed to do. She flexed her fingers again, spreading them wide and then bringing them back together. Once her hands had been her most valuable possession, her ticket out of poverty. Now they served drinks and carried plates, and the calluses had formed in different places. In the mirror, she could still see traces of the girl who had once played Rachmaninoff with such passion that her teacher had wept. That girl had believed music could transform her life. That girl hadn't yet learned how quickly dreams could be derailed by reality. "I can do this," she whispered to her reflection. "Just background music. No one will even be listening closely." With a deep breath, she stepped out of the staff room and into the hallway, where Mr. Bellamy was waiting. His eyebrows rose slightly when he saw her. "You clean up nicely," he said, sounding surprised. "Thank you, sir," she replied, resisting the urge to tug at the unfamiliar dress. He led her through the kitchen, where a few cooks glanced up curiously, and then through a side door that opened into the main dining room. The restaurant was full now, a Friday night crowd of business executives, wealthy couples, and the occasional celebrity hidden in a corner booth. And there, in its place of honor near the windows, was the piano. It seemed to watch her as she approached, its polished surface reflecting the room's warm lighting. "I've told the guests that our regular pianist is unwell, and we have a special replacement for the evening," Mr. Bellamy murmured. "I didn't mention that you work here." Of course not, Lily thought. Heaven forbid the customers know they're being entertained by a mere server. "The private room with the investors is just through there," he continued, nodding toward a set of double doors. "If you could play something sophisticated, classical perhaps. They're expecting a certain level of refinement." "I understand," Lily said, though what she understood most clearly was his fear. Fear that she would embarrass him, that she wasn't good enough for his precious investors. He gave her a tight smile and gestured toward the piano bench. "Whenever you're ready." Lily approached the instrument like someone approaching an unpredictable animal. The baby grand was nicer than anything she had played before, certainly nicer than the upright her mother had scrimped and saved to buy, or even the practice pianos at the conservatory. She sat down carefully, adjusting the bench height. The keys gleamed up at her, ivory and ebony, familiar and yet somehow foreign after so long. She placed her hands in her lap, suddenly paralyzed by doubt. What was she thinking? She couldn't do this. Not here, not now, not after all this time. She looked up, ready to flee, and caught sight of Danny watching her from the service station, giving her an encouraging nod. Slowly, Lily raised her hands and positioned them over the keys. The restaurant's ambient noise seemed to fade as she focused on the feel of cool ivory beneath her fingertips. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and pressed down. A single note rang out, clear and pure, then another, and another. Her fingers remembered Debussy's Clair de Lune, one of the first pieces she had mastered as a teenager. The gentle, flowing melody filled the space around her, tentative at first, then growing in confidence. It wasn't perfect. She missed notes here and there, her timing occasionally faltering as she navigated passages that had once been automatic. But the music came back to her like an old friend, patient with her mistakes and forgiving of her absence. As she played, she kept her eyes mostly closed, afraid to see the reactions of the diners. Instead, she retreated into the music, letting it wash over her and through her. For the first time in 6 years, she allowed herself to remember how it felt to speak through the piano, to express the emotions she usually kept carefully contained. The final notes of the Debussy piece faded, and Lily opened her eyes, half expecting to see people staring or, worse, not noticing at all. But the room continued its usual buzz of conversation, though she thought perhaps a few heads had turned briefly in her direction before returning to their meals and discussions. Background music. That's what they wanted. That's what she was providing. With growing confidence, she transitioned into Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, her fingers becoming more fluid with each measure. The muscle memory was returning, her hands remembering what her conscious mind had tried to forget. As she played, she caught glimpses of the restaurant around her. Waiters, her colleagues, moved between tables with practiced grace. Diners sipped wine and cut into perfectly cooked steaks. Through the windows, the city lights sparkled against the darkness, a backdrop to the small drama unfolding in this restaurant. Mr. Bellamy appeared in her peripheral vision, checking on her progress. She straightened her back and put extra expression into the music, not for him but for herself. He nodded, apparently satisfied, and disappeared into the private dining room where the investors waited. Time seemed to bend as Lily played one piece after another, drawing from the repertoire she had once known by heart, Mozart, Bach, more Chopin. Her fingers grew surer, her interpretation more confident. The music flowed from her like water finding its natural path, hesitant at first, but then with increasing certainty. In a strange way, it felt like coming home. Not to a physical place, but to herself. To the person she had been before life's harsh realities had forced her to set aside her passion. Between pieces, she became aware that the ambient noise in the restaurant had changed subtly. The conversation seemed more hushed, the clink of cutlery less frequent. Once or twice she noticed diners pausing mid-bite, their attention caught by a particularly beautiful phrase. But they weren't here to listen to her. They were here to eat expensive food and conduct their important business. She was just part of the atmosphere, like the lighting or the art on the walls. And yet, as she began Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, Lily found herself caring less about what they thought. She was playing for herself now, rediscovering the joy that had once been the center of her life. Her body swayed slightly with the music, her face reflecting the emotion of each passage. She had forgotten this feeling. The way playing transported her beyond the ordinary world, beyond her troubles and fears, into a place where only the music existed. It had been her escape as a child in a cramped apartment, her salvation as a grieving daughter, and now, unexpectedly, her revelation as an adult who had lost her way. Through the windows, she could see that night had fully fallen. The restaurant would be open for hours yet, but already the evening felt magical, suspended in time. The weight of the past 6 years, the grief, the struggle, the resignation seemed lighter somehow, as if the music was slowly dissolving it note by note. As the final, haunting notes of the sonata echoed through the room, Lily noticed something she hadn't expected. A silence. Brief but definite. A moment when the conversations paused, when the movement of servers stilled, when the entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Then it passed, and the normal sounds resumed. But something had shifted. Lily could feel it as she transitioned into her next piece. A few heads turned toward the piano. A couple paused their conversation to listen. A child at a family table pointed in her direction. They were beginning to notice, not just the music as pleasant background noise, but the musician herself. The waitress in a borrowed dress who had kept this part of herself hidden for so long. Mr. Bellamy emerged from the private dining room again, this time with a tall woman in an elegant suit. They stood at the edge of the room watching Lily play. The woman leaned over to say something to him, her expression interested, appraising. Lily straightened her posture and continued playing, uncertain what this new attention meant, but feeling for the first time in years that perhaps her music still had the power to reach people, to matter. And in that moment, despite the imperfect circumstances and the years of silence, she allowed herself to feel something dangerously close to hope. Something was changing in the restaurant. Lily felt it as she finished Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata and let her hands rest momentarily on the keys. The usual Friday night hum of conversation had shifted. People were still eating, still talking, but now they were doing so with one ear turned toward the piano. She glanced up quickly and caught the eye of an elderly woman at a nearby table. Instead of looking away, the woman smiled and gave a small nod of appreciation. Lily felt her cheeks warm as she nodded back. Taking a deep breath, she decided to try something different. Her fingers found the opening notes of Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, a piece that blended classical technique with jazz rhythms. It had always been one of her favorites, though her more traditional teachers had sometimes frowned upon her love for it. The change in style seemed to wake up the room. A few heads turned more directly toward the piano. A waiter paused while pouring wine, his attention caught by the lively, unexpected melody. Even the bartender looked over, his hand stilling mid-shake. Lily felt a sudden rush of confidence. This was what she had loved most about playing, the ability to capture attention, to make people feel something, to create a moment that lifted them out of the ordinary. She had forgotten how powerful that feeling was, how addictive. As her left hand kept the rhythm, her right danced across the higher keys in the familiar bluesy runs. She wasn't attempting the full orchestral piece. Of course, that would be impossible on solo piano, but she was capturing its essence, its spirit, and people were noticing. A young couple at a corner table had actually turned their chairs slightly to face the piano. The man leaned over to whisper something to the woman, who nodded without taking her eyes off Lily's hands. Mr. Bellamy reappeared from the private dining room, this time with 3 of his investors in tow. They stood at the edge of the main dining area, champagne glasses in hand, watching with evident interest. One of them, a tall man with silver-framed glasses, was recording with his phone. Lily felt a flutter of nerves at being filmed but kept playing. The music was flowing through her now, more confident with every measure. Her body swayed slightly with the rhythm, no longer stiff with anxiety but fluid, expressive. Danny caught her eye from across the room and gave her a discreet thumbs up while balancing a tray of desserts. The simple gesture of support made Lily smile as she transitioned into the more contemplative middle section of the piece. That's when she noticed a woman sitting alone at a table near the windows. Unlike the other diners who were stealing glances at the piano between bites and conversation, this woman was watching Lily directly, unabashedly. She was perhaps in her 50s, with elegant gray-streaked hair pulled back in a sleek bun and a posture that spoke of confidence and authority. Something about the intensity of her gaze made Lily think she was listening differently than the others. Not just hearing pretty music, but actually listening. Lily forced herself to look away, focusing again on the keys beneath her fingers. The middle section gave way to the final triumphant theme, and she put everything she had into it, letting the music swell to fill the space. As the last notes faded, something unprecedented happened. Applause broke out, scattered at first, then spreading across the dining room. Not the polite acknowledgement one might give a background musician, but real applause, the kind that demanded attention. Lily looked up, startled. The young couple in the corner were smiling and clapping enthusiastically. The elderly woman nodded with approval. Even some of the servers had paused to applaud, though they quickly resumed their duties when Mr. Bellamy shot them a look. The woman near the window wasn't clapping, but she was still watching Lily with that same intense focus, now accompanied by a slight smile. Unsure what to do, Lily gave an awkward little half bow from her seated position and quickly turned back to the piano. She needed to keep playing to maintain the atmosphere. That was her job tonight, after all. Not to put on a concert, but to provide background music. She decided to change the mood, shifting to something more contemplative. Satie's Gymnopédie No. 1 with its gentle floating melody. As her fingers found the familiar pattern, she noticed Mr. Bellamy approaching the piano, the elegant woman from the window table now beside him. "Don't stop playing," he murmured as they reached her. "But I wanted to introduce you to Ms. Chen, one of our most valued guests." Lily nodded, continuing to play as she glanced up. Up close, she could see that Ms. Chen had keen eyes that missed nothing, set in a face that was both formidable and kind. "You play beautifully," Ms. Chen said, her voice carrying a hint of an accent Lily couldn't quite place. "Where did you study?" Lily hesitated, her fingers never pausing on the keys. "Manhattan Conservatory," she replied. "But I didn't finish." "Ah," Ms. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. "And how long have you been playing for Mr. Bellamy's establishment?" Before Lily could answer, Mr. Bellamy cut in smoothly. "Ms. Chen, perhaps we could continue this conversation later. I'm sure our pianist needs to concentrate." Ms. Chen smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "Of course, but I would very much like to speak with you later," she said to Lily. "I'll be here until closing." With that, they moved away, Mr. Bellamy steering her back toward the private dining room. Lily caught fragments of their conversation, something about a music foundation and talent development. Confused but intrigued, Lily let the Satie piece flow into another, her mind racing with questions. Who was this woman? And why was she so interested in a restaurant pianist? Why had Mr. Bellamy seemed almost nervous during their interaction? As the evening progressed, Lily lost herself in the music again. After an hour of playing, her hands should have been tired. She was out of practice after all. But instead they felt energized, alive with remembered skill and new confidence. She moved from classical pieces to jazz standards, even incorporating some film scores that she had always enjoyed playing. The restaurant had subtly reorganized itself around her performance. New arrivals requested tables closer to the piano. Diners lingered over dessert and coffee, reluctant to leave. The bartender had turned down the volume of the small speakers in the bar area, allowing the piano music to extend throughout the space. Mr. Bellamy's investors had long since emerged from the private dining room and were now scattered among the regular tables, enjoying the main restaurant's atmosphere. Several had taken videos of Lily playing, and she noticed one woman showing something on her phone to her companion, both of them glancing over at the piano with interest. Around 10 o'clock, as the dinner crowd began to thin and the late-night patrons took their place, Lily decided to take a risk. She had been playing it safe so far, sticking to well-known pieces that created a pleasant atmosphere. But now, with the restaurant's energy shifted and people actually listening, she wanted to play something more personal. She began with a piece she had composed herself during her final year at the conservatory, a piece no one in this room had ever heard before. It started softly, almost tentatively, like a question being asked. Then it built, layer by layer, growing more complex and confident. This was music that had come from her own heart, her own experiences. Music she had written during late nights in practice rooms, drawing on memories of her childhood, her mother's illness, her dreams and fears. It was the most honest thing she had ever created. The restaurant grew quieter as she played. Conversations paused. Servers moved more slowly, their usual efficiency giving way to distracted attention. Even the sounds from the kitchen seemed to dim. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Then once again applause, stronger this time, more unified. Someone in the back called out, "Bravo!" A woman at a nearby table wiped away a tear. Lily felt a surge of emotion so powerful it almost overwhelmed her. This connection with an audience, this was what she had missed most. Not the technical challenge of difficult pieces or even the pure beauty of the music itself, but this moment of sharing something genuine and having it received, understood, appreciated. Mr. Bellamy appeared beside the piano again, his expression a mixture of surprise and calculation. "What was that piece?" he asked quietly as the applause died down. "I don't recognize it." "Something I wrote," Lily replied, her hand still resting on the keys. "A long time ago." He looked at her with new respect. "The investors are extremely impressed. Ms. Chen has been asking questions about you." He hesitated, then added, "I didn't tell her you normally serve tables here." Of course he hadn't. Lily bit back a sarcastic response and simply nodded. "Keep playing," he said, glancing around at the appreciative crowd. "Whatever you've been doing, it's working." As he walked away, Lily noticed Danny giving her an enthusiastic thumbs up from behind the bar, where she was filling drink orders. Several other servers were smiling in her direction, and she realized that for the first time in 6 years, her colleagues were seeing her as something other than just another waitress. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of music and growing confidence. Lily played everything she could remember: classical pieces, jazz standards, movie themes, even some pop songs rearranged for piano. Each time she finished a piece, the applause grew more enthusiastic. People began to make requests. A young girl, out for a special dinner with her parents, shyly asked for Fur Elise and beamed when Lily played it for her. By midnight, the restaurant had transformed from a place where people came primarily to eat into something resembling a concert venue, where food happened to be served. Diners who would normally have left after their meals were ordering extra drinks, reluctant to miss the unexpected performance. New customers arrived, having heard from friends that something special was happening at Bellamy's tonight. Throughout it all, Lily remained aware of Miss Chen, who had moved from her window table to sit closer to the piano. She never applauded with the others but watched with that same intense focus, occasionally making notes on her phone. Just after midnight, during a brief pause between pieces, a tall man in an expensive suit approached the piano. He had been dining with a group of friends who had grown increasingly vocal in their appreciation as the night went on. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying the slight slur of someone who had enjoyed several cocktails. "Would you play something by Billy Joel? Maybe Piano Man?" His friends laughed, clearly enjoying some private joke. Before Lily could respond, another voice cut in. "I believe our pianist has demonstrated a rather more sophisticated repertoire this evening." It was Ms. Chen, suddenly standing beside Lily at the piano. Her voice was polite but firm, leaving no room for argument. The man looked taken aback. "I just thought, perhaps another time," Ms. Chen said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then to Lily, "Please continue with what you were playing before. It was quite moving." As the man retreated, looking slightly embarrassed, Ms. Chen leaned down and said quietly, "Never let anyone diminish your gift by treating it as mere entertainment. What you're doing here tonight is art, not a party trick." With that, she returned to her seat, leaving Lily with a strange feeling of having been both defended and challenged. Who was this woman? And why did she care so much about what a restaurant pianist played? Turning back to the keys, Lily began Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor, one of the most challenging pieces in her repertoire, and one she had never thought she would play again. Her fingers moved with renewed purpose, drawing out the piece's dramatic contrasts and emotional depth. As she played, she felt something shifting inside her, a reawakening of ambition, of possibility. For years, She had told herself that her dreams of being a pianist were over, that life had forced her down a different path. But tonight, with every note, those dreams were refusing to stay buried any longer. The restaurant was closing. Waiters cleared the last tables as the final guests reluctantly made their way out, many pausing to look back at the piano where Lily had played for nearly 4 straight hours. Her fingers ached pleasantly, and her back felt stiff from sitting so long, but her mind was clearer than it had been in years. "That was incredible," Danny said, approaching with a glass of water. "I've never seen Bellamy's like this. People were staying for hours just to listen to you." Lily took the water gratefully, suddenly realizing how thirsty she was. "Thanks, I still can't believe I did that." "Believe it," Danny replied with a grin. "Also, check your phone. I've been seeing people posting videos all night." Confused, Lily reached for her phone in the small clutch bag Danny had lent her. She hadn't checked it since before her performance began. The screen was filled with notifications, dozens of them. Some were messages from friends who had apparently seen videos of her playing, asking variations of, "Is that you?" Others were alerts from social media platforms she rarely used, showing an unusual amount of activity. "What is happening?" she murmured, scrolling through the flood of notifications. "You're going viral, that's what," Danny said, looking over her shoulder. "Look at these view counts. That one's already at 30,000 and it was only posted 2 hours ago." Lily stared at the screen in disbelief. Someone had posted a video of her playing her own composition, the personal piece she had almost been afraid to perform. The caption read, "Waitress at fancy NYC restaurant turns out to be piano genius. Most beautiful thing I've heard all year." "I don't understand," Lily said, her voice small. "It's just me playing the piano." "With soul," came a voice from behind them. "You play with soul, which is rarer than you might think." They turned to see Ms. Chen standing there, coat draped over her arm, clearly preparing to leave but making one final stop at the piano. "Ms. Chen," Lily acknowledged, standing up quickly. The movement made her realize how stiff her body had become during her marathon performance. "Please call me Vivian," the woman said, extending her hand. "I've been waiting until the crowd thinned to speak with. Irv's a second chance, it's you. Just promise you'll remember us little people when you're selling out Carnegie Hall." Lily laughed, but for the first time in years, the idea didn't seem completely impossible. After all, just hours ago, the idea of playing piano for a room full of strangers had seemed terrifying, yet she had done it. And not only had she survived, but she had thrived. The future suddenly seemed full of open doors, each one inviting her to step through and reclaim the path she had once been forced to abandon. She didn't know yet which door she would choose, but for tonight, it was enough to know that they existed. As a taxi pulled up to the curb, Lily took one last look at Bellamy's, at the piano visible through the windows, now silent but somehow still resonant with the music she had brought back to life. "Ready?" Danny asked, holding the taxi door open. Lily smiled, feeling the weight of those business cards in her pocket, the memory of applause still ringing in her ears, and the rekindled flame of purpose warming her from within. "Yes," she said. "I think I finally am." 3 months had passed since that unexpected night at Bellamy's. Spring had given way to summer and the city sweltered in the July heat. Lily stood in the wings of a small performance hall, peeking out at the audience filling the seats. Her hands, once calloused from carrying trays, now bore the marks of hours of daily practice. "Nervous?" Vivian asked, appearing beside her with a reassuring smile. Lily nodded, unable to find words for the mix of excitement and terror swirling inside her. This was her first real recital since returning to the Manhattan School of Music, her official debut as a scholarship student in their adult continuing education program. "Good," Vivian said, surprising her. "Use it. Channel it into your performance." The journey to this moment had been anything but straightforward. The Monday after her impromptu performance at Bellamy's, Lily had indeed met with Vivian Chen, who had offered her a partial scholarship to complete her education. That same week she had visited Tom Wilson at Horizon Records, who had listened to her play for an hour before proposing a development deal for her original compositions. And Mr. Bellamy, true to his word, had kept her position as a server, while also offering her the weekend pianist role at double her usual pay. Faced with these unexpected options, Lily had made a choice that surprised even herself. She had accepted all 3 opportunities, creating a new life that balanced education, performance, and composition. Now, As the hall lights dimmed and the host stepped on stage to introduce her, Lily took a deep breath. Her path had not been what she'd expected, but perhaps it was better for the detours. Our next performer, the host announced, is a promising talent who reminds us that it's never too late to pursue our passions. Please welcome Lily Parker. The applause carried her onto the stage. The piano waited, lid raised, gleaming under the spotlights. Not as grand as a concert hall Steinway, but far nicer than the upright she'd practiced on as a child. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and looked out at the audience. In the front row sat Danny, grinning and giving a discreet thumbs up. Beside her were 3 other servers from Bellamy's, who had pooled their tips to buy tickets for Lily's recital. A few rows back, she spotted Tom Wilson with 2 colleagues from his record label, notepads at the ready. And there, near the center, was a face she hadn't expected, Mr. Bellamy himself, looking somewhat out of his element but present nonetheless. Lily placed her hands on the keys and began to play. She started with Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in G minor, the same challenging piece she had played during her night at Bellamy's, but this time, it was not an act of defiance or rediscovery. This time it was a deliberate choice, a piece she had practiced for hours, refining each passage until it spoke exactly what she wanted it to say. As her fingers moved across the keys, she thought about the strange path that had led her here, the years of setting her passion aside, the unexpected opportunity that had rekindled it, and the hard work of the past 3 months as she balanced her various commitments. She still served tables at Bellamy's 2 nights a week, partly for the income, but also because she had come to value the groundedness of the work. There was something honest about carrying plates and refilling water glasses, something that kept her connected to the real world outside practice rooms and recording studios. On Friday and Saturday nights, she played piano at the restaurant, but not as background music anymore. Now Bellamy's advertised her performances, and guests made reservations specifically to hear her play. The dynamic had shifted. She was no longer invisible, no longer just part of the atmosphere. 3 days a week, she attended classes at the Manhattan School of Music, working to complete the degree she had abandoned years ago, and the remaining time she spent in a small studio provided by Horizon Records, recording demos of her compositions for an EP that would be released in the fall. It was an exhausting schedule, but Lily had never felt more alive. After years of merely existing, of pushing through each day with resigned acceptance, she was finally living with purpose. The Chopin piece gave way to a Beethoven sonata, her fingers finding the familiar patterns with confidence. The audience was attentive, appreciative, but Lily wasn't playing for them, not entirely. She was playing for herself, for the pure joy of creating music, of expressing through sound what could never be adequately captured in words. For her final piece, she had chosen one of her own compositions, the same one she had played that night at Bellamy's, the one that had caught Tom Wilson's attention. But in the intervening months she had refined it, expanded it, given it room to breathe and grow. Now it told a more complete story, from struggle to acceptance to unexpected redemption. As the last notes faded into silence, there was a moment of stillness, that magical pause when an audience holds its breath before responding. Then came the applause, warm, enthusiastic, genuine. Lily stood and bowed, her heart racing with a mixture of relief and exhilaration. She had done it. Not perfectly. She had noticed a few small mistakes, moments where her fingers had slipped or her timing had faltered. But she had played with her whole heart, and that, she was learning, was what truly mattered. Backstage, after accepting congratulations from fellow students and faculty, she found Danny waiting with a bouquet of sunflowers. "Those were always my mom's favorites," Lily said, surprised and touched as she accepted them. "I know," Danny replied with a smile. "You mentioned it once, months ago. I figured she should be here somehow." The thought brought unexpected tears to Lily's eyes. "She would have loved this," she whispered. "All of it." "She would have been so proud," Danny agreed, giving her a quick hug. "The others are waiting outside. We're taking you to dinner to celebrate. No arguments." As they walked toward the exit, Tom Wilson intercepted them, his expression pleased. "Exceptional work tonight, Lily," he said. "Especially that final piece. The changes you've made really strengthen it. I've got some exciting news about the EP, but it can wait until tomorrow's meeting." He smiled and added, "Hey, you properly. Your playing tonight was exceptional, especially considering what I understand to be a rather lengthy hiatus. Lily blinked in surprise. How did you— Mr. Bellamy eventually admitted you're usually on his service staff, Vivian said with a slight smile. He seemed quite embarrassed about it, though I can't imagine why. Great talent emerges from unexpected places all the time. Danny, sensing the importance of this conversation, murmured, "I'll let you two talk," and discreetly moved away. "May I?" Vivian gestured to the piano bench and Lily nodded, sitting back down to make room. "I should introduce myself properly," Vivian continued once they were seated. "I'm Vivian Chen, Director of the Manhattan School of Music's Adult Education and Continuing Studies program." Lily felt her heart skip a beat. The Manhattan School of Music was one of the most prestigious conservatories in the country. "I was here tonight for dinner with friends," Vivian continued. "I had no expectation of discovering exceptional talent serving soufflé. Yet here we are." "I'm not—" Lily began, then stopped herself. Tonight had reminded her that she was in fact talented. Denying it felt dishonest. "I mean, I studied at the conservatory years ago, but I had to leave before finishing my degree." "May I ask why?" The question was direct, but Vivian's tone was gentle. Lily found herself answering honestly. "My mother got sick. Cancer. The medical bills." She shrugged, the familiar weight of those memories pressing down on her. "I had to choose between school and helping her. It wasn't really a choice at all." Vivian nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And after? After she passed, I just kept working. The restaurant job paid the bills. I told myself I'd get back to music someday, but—" Lily gestured vaguely at the space around them. "Life happens, I guess." "Life does indeed happen," Vivian agreed. "But sometimes life also gives us unexpected second chances." She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, placing it on the piano keys. "I'd like you to come see me next week. The school has scholarships for returning students with exceptional ability. Based on what I heard tonight, you would be an excellent candidate." Lily stared at the card, her vision blurring slightly. "Are you serious?" "Entirely. Your technique shows some understandable rust, but your musicality, your emotional connection to the pieces, those are things that can't be taught." Vivian stood up, straightening her coat. "Monday morning, 10 o'clock. My office is on the 3rd floor." As Vivian turned to leave, Lily found her voice again. "Thank you, but why would you do this for a stranger?" Vivian paused, looking back with a slight smile. "Because 30 years ago, I was a waitress playing piano in hotel lobbies in Shanghai when someone gave me a similar opportunity. Talent deserves nurturing no matter where it's found." She nodded once, definitively. "Monday, don't be late." And then she was gone, leaving Lily on the piano bench with a business card and a mind full of possibilities that hadn't existed 6 hours earlier. "What was that about?" Danny asked, returning as soon as Vivian had left. Before Lily could answer, a man approached the piano. He was in his 40s, casually but expensively dressed, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to being listened to. "Excuse me," he said. "I hope I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to introduce myself before leaving. I'm Tom Wilson." The name sounded vaguely familiar, but Lily couldn't place it. She shook his offered hand. "Lily Parker." "I know," he said with a smile. "Your name has been circulating around the restaurant all evening. I'm a music producer with Horizon Records. We specialize in classical and jazz crossover artists." Danny made a small gasping sound beside her, clearly recognizing the label. "Your performance tonight was extraordinary," Tom continued. "The technical skill is evident, of course, but what really caught my attention was your original composition." "Did I hear correctly that you wrote that yourself?" Lily nodded, feeling slightly dazed. "Years ago, when I was still at the conservatory." "Do you have others?" he asked, his interest clearly piqued. "A few," she admitted. In truth, she had dozens of compositions stored in a box under her bed. Pieces she had written during her school years and even after, during sleepless nights when the music in her head wouldn't let her rest. Tom reached into his jacket and produced a business card. "I'd like to hear them. All of them. We're always looking for fresh voices in contemporary classical music, especially those with your emotional depth and accessibility." 2 business cards in 5 minutes. Lily took the second one with the surreal feeling that she must be dreaming. "Call my office next week," Tom said. "We'll set up a proper audition. Maybe discuss the possibility of recording some of your original work." No promises, of course, but based on what I heard tonight, I think we might have something special here. After he too had left, Danny grabbed Lily's arm. Do you have any idea what just happened? That was Tom Wilson. His label represents some of the biggest crossover classical artists in the world. Lily nodded mutely, the events of the evening finally catching up with her. Her hands trembled slightly as she gathered the business cards and placed them carefully in the small clutch bag. Lily. Mr. Bellamy's voice cut through her daze as he approached the piano, looking both excited and slightly flustered. There you are. Incredible performance. Absolutely incredible. The investors are thrilled. They think I've discovered some hidden musical genius. Danny rolled her eyes behind his back, but Lily managed a polite smile. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Bellamy. The thing is, he continued, lowering his voice conspiratorially, this could be a tremendous boost for the restaurant's profile. People are already calling to ask if you'll be playing again. The videos online are mentioning Bellamy's by name. He straightened his tie, looking pleased with himself. So I'd like to offer you a permanent position as our weekend pianist. 3 nights a week, double your current hourly rate. It was a generous offer, especially compared to her server's salary. A week ago, Lily would have jumped at it, grateful for the extra income and the chance to play regularly, even if only as background music for diners. But now, with Vivian Chen's card burning a hole in her purse and Tom Wilson's interest in her compositions, the offer felt limiting. That's very kind, she said carefully. Could I have a few days to think about it? Mr. Bellamy looked surprised, clearly not the response he had expected. Oh, well, yes, of course. Just let me know by Monday. He cleared his throat. And, I hope this goes without saying, but your regular position is always secure, no matter what happens with the piano playing. After he walked away, Danny let out a low whistle. Look at you having options. So what are you going to do? Lily ran her fingers lightly over the piano keys one last time before closing the lid. I don't know yet, but for the first time in years, I feel like I actually have choices. The restaurant was empty now, the staff finishing their closing duties. Through the windows, Lily could see the city lights glowing against the night sky, the streets still alive with possibility even at this late hour. Come on, Danny said, nudging her gently. Let's get changed and grab a late dinner to celebrate. I want to hear every detail about what those fancy people said to you. In the staff room, Lily changed back into her regular clothes, carefully hanging up Danny's dress. As she pulled her phone from the clutch bag, it buzzed with new notifications. More people had seen the videos. More comments, more shares, more messages from friends and acquaintances expressing surprise and admiration. One notification caught her eye. A comment on the most popular video, from someone claiming to have been her classmate at the conservatory years ago. I always knew Lily Parker would make it someday. Her talent was undeniable even back then. So happy to see her playing again. She stared at the screen, a lump forming in her throat. All these years she had told herself that walking away from music had been her only option. That dreams had to be set aside for reality. That some doors once closed couldn't be reopened, but tonight had shown her otherwise. Tonight she had played for herself and for an audience that truly listened. Tonight she had been recognized not as a server, but as an artist with something valuable to offer the world. As she and Danny walked out of Bellamy's into the cool night air, Lily felt lighter than she had in years. The weight of abandoned dreams and resigned acceptance had lifted, replaced by something that felt dangerously like hope. You know what's weird? She said as they waited for a cab. I've spent 6 years convincing myself that losing music was inevitable, that life just took me in a different direction. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe some dreams are patient enough to wait for us to find our way back to them. Danny squeezed her arm affectionately. If anyone